Has technology reached the point where it's at terminal velocity, or has it plateaued in terms of innovation and getting excited about technology? We're going to talk about that topic next on Today in Tech. Hi, everybody. Keith Shaw here for Today in Tech. We have a guest in studio. We have Jack Gold. He's the founder and principal analyst at J. Gold Associates. Jack, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm just really excited. So, because we usually have people on Zoom. So this is someone live I can actually look at and talk to.
Glad to be here.
So the reason that I want to talk about kind of the tech innovation, whether innovation is dead or alive these days, I'm looking back at a lot of numbers. You're seeing PC shipments drop over the last couple of quarters. You're seeing smartphone shipments. They're just not as exciting. There seems to be in the consumer space and somewhat in the enterprise space too. There's just it's just updates of existing equipment,
right.
And I'm just wondering is this part of maybe just the economics that are going on of are we in a cycle, or have you seen similar things? I used to be a real tech optimist. I mean, I used to write the gadget column for Network World, and every year, and this was from 2000 to 2010, there was always something new and exciting. It was a gadget, it was really cool. And then ever since sort of like 2010, there hasn't been much. And maybe it's shifted from hardware to software, and people are more excited about apps and mobile apps or little iterations. And so, again, this is an open-ended question. Do you feel the same, or is it more just that I might just be getting old and crotchety?
Well, no, that's my job, getting old and crotchety. But I'll tell you what's going on, and my impression of what's going on in the marketplace. So we're hitting, in a lot of things, smartphones, PCs, et cetera, an innovation curve. And the innovation curve really says that when things are new, things change really quickly.
Right.
I want to update all the time. I need a new smartphone every year because things really improved. As we get down the innovation curve, they don't improve very often, right? Your smartphone, your 2-year-old smartphone's got most of what your current smartphone has. Okay,
right.
The current one's got, Samsung just announced the new Galaxies. Great camera, got better night vision. It's got a faster processor. For most people, it's probably not that big of a deal.
Right.
So people are keeping their devices for 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years in some cases. Same with PCs. A new PC is great,
Yep.
But does it really give me that much more than I would have otherwise? So to some extent, you're right. Again, the innovation curve, when we have older component technologies like a PC, it doesn't change as quickly. You can't, right?
Right.
So people are holding back, and especially now in economic times when people are worried, am I going to have a job tomorrow in some cases?
Right.
They're not going to go out and buy a lot of new technology. That said, however, there are a lot of new things that are coming down the pike that I think are going to be very impressive longer term.
Okay.
The problem is it takes time.
Right.
We don't get stuff overnight. We had this little discussion earlier about smartphones and where do they really come from? Well,
right.
they started way back when with Palm Pilots, right? And then Handspring came along, put a radio on it. It's not that...
And the Kyocera smartphone, I remember that. That was the first one I think they actually called it a smartphone.
Actually, IBM had one, and
okay.
I can't remember the name of it right now. And and Apple built a tablet, and there was all kinds of stuff along those lines. It was mostly experimental, right?
Yeah.
It took a while before BlackBerry came along, and then we got the iPhone. So that we were really early on the innovation curve, and every iteration really made a big difference. That was 15 years ago or so, 20 years ago perhaps. It's harder to innovate when you're already at a high level.
Yeah.
Getting to the next level
Right.
is really tough.
That raises 2 points. From the Samsung Galaxy, they had an event yesterday.
Right.
I wasn't watching the live stream. I'm just not into smartphones as much as I used to be. I remember every time Apple would come out, you'd sit there in your office and watch the 3-hour live stream of what they were going to announce, and you got really excited about some of the new features. But I looked at the story that I think it's Tom's Hardware wrote, and there's like seven Galaxy S23 features that impressed me the most. And it was like, wow, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 mobile platform. Like, I could care less about a processor. 256 gigabytes of base storage. It's like, storage? Really? You're excited about storage? The smarter nighttime features and the camera. It's a bigger camera. And then the last one was the text calling feature called Bixby. And it was like, oh my, it just doesn't excite me as it used to. But then I was also reminded when you say that as you get higher and higher, the big jump in innovation goes, big leaps, and then you have small little leaps. Like the same thing with like computer graphics in video games and high def TVs, and we're at 4K, and then you want to jump to 8K, but like you can't even see 8K, right? Like, so
I mean, it's a logarithmic curve, right?
Right.
It's not linear. It falls off. The new innovations when you get higher and higher up the curve take longer and longer. Actually, don't necessarily take longer, but have less impact overall than you would have early on.
Right. So, I think that in smartphones too, the biggest kind of excitement is around the foldable smartphone, and that's been out. Samsung has a few, right? But people are now thinking either Apple might do one on an iPad. Lenovo has done some, but like, should I get excited about a foldable screen? No, right?
Well, the question is, what are you going to do with it, and what's the advantage? Why would I want it?
Right.
So, a foldable screen in a phone is kind of cool if you want something that's small and compact, right? And it also allows you to have multiple screens open at the same time, which for a lot of people is a good thing.
Yeah.
But for the general purpose user and the normal, run-of-the-mill consumer, it's cool.
Yeah,
it's something you can show your friends, but you're going to spend an extra 30 or 40% over another cost over the cost of a regular phone.
Right.
Most people probably aren't going to.
Like, I also wrote down a list. I was in my head, just trying to think of when was the last time we were excited about either new hardware or software, and we had. The iRobot Roomba 2002, Facebook 2004, Twitter 2006, and those are software. It's not really, that's sort of when social media started. But everyone was excited about that.
You know what the biggest thing was with PCs, and this is going back almost 30 years now, I think.
Yeah,
Wi-Fi. Remember when first PCs came out? Remember the Intel commercials? The guy was sitting on a park bench saying, "I can work from anywhere because I'm connected." That stimulated the market dramatically.
I'm going to show you how. I remember covering the Wi-Fi versus home RF kind of debate.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, like that was early in my career as a tech journalist.
Wasn't that the 1800s?
It felt like it, certainly. Wireless. Yeah, I loved talking about Wi-Fi and all the generations, but now I think we're on. Was it Wi-Fi 6, 7? Yeah. 7. See because the Wi-Fi in my house works great. I've got 3 kids. They're all teenagers. They have not, with all the streaming they do and all of the stuff, they're constantly just on their phones.
Right.
But they still haven't sort of congested the network enough where I need to start thinking about upgrading. Because I think I have a Wi-Fi 6, but I don't even know which device is on my network now. I do have a G and a N sort of separate network. So I do have a 5G, 5 gigahertz, not 5G, the wireless.
Right. 5 gigahertz. Well, and the other issue that most people encounter when they're looking at, Wi-Fi 5, Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 7, do I upgrade, is what's my connection coming into the house? You can upgrade to gig speed on Wi-Fi 7, but if you've got a 100 meg line coming into the house, it's not going to do you that much good.
Right. So it's still that bottleneck is your wide,
the speed is
broadband. Yeah.
Now it can handle more devices. So if you're in a household where you've got 30 devices because your refrigerator's online and all of that kind of stuff, then it makes a difference. But for the average user, they're probably not going to see that much difference.
There's a disappointing technology, the internet connected refrigerator. That's like landed like a lead balloon, right? Do you have one?
No. What does it do for me?
Yeah.
It's same with, my daughter asked me a question. She needs to go out and buy some new laundry equipment, right? New washer dryer. She says, I'm looking at this one with Wi-Fi. And I said, why? What is it going to do? So it's going to buzz your phone when the laundry's done.
Right. Now that's an actual cool feature I might like, because half the time you're upstairs, again, I'm upstairs. Our laundry machines, our washer dryer are downstairs. Yeah, and half the time I wish that the timing cycles would be equal, and they're not. Like the washer takes only 20 minutes, and the dryer takes an hour and a half.
Right.
And so you forget about the laundry that's just wet and sitting in the washing machine.
Yeah, I figure if I take it out as long as it's not moldy, I'm okay. You can just put it in the dryer anyway.
The best innovation in washer and dryer, and again, this is a weird tangent. We're not talking technology at all. The coolest innovation lately is the downy little dryer
pods?
beads. No, not the pods. The pods is for the detergent. But
Right.
now but somehow some geniuses at Procter & Gamble figured out this is how we can get people to buy more laundry things. It's these little tiny beads. And you pour them in, and it makes your clothes smell so much better than if you just use the sort of the Tide Pod type thing.
Well, but then everyone
Or
knows
the bounce
it.
scented
You
sheets.
use it when you're walking down the street because they can smell you coming.
Hey, it's so much better than how I smell if I'm not having that stuff. All right, getting back. Again, there's not much innovations going on, and even the cool stuff. I want to see what you're excited about, but AR, VR.
Right.
It was supposed to be this thing, and I tried the Sony stuff. I haven't actually tried the Meta Oculus things. I think I may have tried it at a trade show early on. The Sony stuff for the PlayStation system, I have glasses, and they've never figured out how to have a good, comfortable experience with glasses. The second version is coming out. I don't know if I'm going to buy it yet. Apple, everyone was excited about sort of the AR, VR thing that they're working on, but then like last week or a couple weeks ago, they're like, we're probably not going to get it out as fast as people expected. Do you think that will spur some innovation? Are you excited anything about AR, VR? I mean, I know that in the workplace and in factories, there's some movement.
That's where I'm more excited, right?
Yeah.
Not for the normal consumer, but for industry, medical. Your doctor's operating and he's got a virtual image of your insides
right.
In front of them when they're operating on you. Machines, you were operating on a machine, you got to fix it, and the instructions are coming up in front of you, or those are the kinds of immediate kinds of capabilities that AR, VR can bring to the table that it makes it advantageous for me to deploy it.
Right.
If I'm on my Sony, do I really care if it's in 3D? Yeah, some people do, of course, but for me, no.
Yeah.
And they're, by the way, they're still relatively uncomfortable to wear, the big ones, right?
Yep.
The newer ones where they're more like glass-like with, the camera in front and, focused on the image on your eyeglasses are better, but then you don't get the resolution. So
Did Google blow it with their Google Glass did they come out too early with it, and then they gave it to all of these sort of bloggers and influencers, and Robert Scoble took a picture of himself in the shower with it, and it felt like that killed the whole Google Glass movement. It just felt, or was it just because the hardware was just clunky and weird, and people didn't?
It was clunky and weird.
Yeah,
I mean, it was really more an experiment than a regular here's what you should go buy kind of environment.
Right.
And I think that a lot of people got turned off because, look, in the early days with AR and VR, it's still a case with many people. If you've got any kinds of brain problems, seizures or epilepsy or any of that kind of stuff, and you put those on, you're in real medical risk.
Right.
Even if you're not an epileptic, it's a problem. So I think we have a long way to go before we can prove that these things are really worthwhile. What is it going to do for me if I go out and buy one?
Right.
I'm from old school. I don't go buy stuff unless I think it really will help me.
Right.
If it's a tool, great. I love tools. I buy all kinds of tools. My garage is full of all this hardware. But if it's just because, the hammer's painted silver instead of black, it's like, okay, how is that any different?
I think it's probably because I'm also getting older and I'm doing more traditional dad stuff. I went to Home Depot and got excited about a cordless screwdriver drill thing because the last one that I had was corded.
Right.
And you'd have to sort of like get an extension cord whenever you were doing stuff. And it was like, all right, this is, but then,
it's wireless.
I know now it's wireless. Well, yeah, it still has to charge with a cable. It's not wireless charging yet. All right. I'm going to turn the tables a little bit on you here. Before the show, we talked, I feel like I'm in that tech pessimism space and I brought you sort of on to be sort of the tech. I want you to bring me back to your side. Like get me excited about some technologies that might still be early, but down the road people will start getting excited about.
Well, first of all, let me say that, from a pessimist, optimist viewpoint, right?
Yeah.
You've got to look at time frames. So most of the tech that we're talking about now that we see as, we've got to have it. I mean, most people still think they have to have a PC. Pretty much everyone thinks they have a smartphone. Takes a decade or more to really develop.
Right.
To really get to the point where it's indispensable. So if we're looking at what's going on right now, that may not be, in our vision, but maybe in 5 or 6 years or 7 years or 8 years. So what are some of the things that I think that are really exciting? There's a lot of stuff going on in, I guess, what I would call generic IoT.
Okay.
But it's not IoT necessarily in the sense of what we think about right now. So think about you got a medical problem, and think about being able to monitor that medical problem all the time online, and being able to tell your doctor that there's a problem coming, what should I do about it, without you having to take any action. Or think about preventing heart attacks, or at least not necessarily preventing them, right? But knowing that there's one coming, and being able to call an ambulance for you before you fall down on the road. Those are the kinds of things that are really kind of subtle in the background, but are really, really going to be important. AI is going to have a function in that as well. AI, by the way, is one of these things that, it's like saying air, right? There's oxygen, there's carbon dioxide, there's nitrogen. AI is this broad field, but there are a lot of interesting things going on in that space. Again, it's going to take years. It's not early on.
And I'm glad you brought up AI, because there was, the whole ChatGPT and some of the art AI stuff that we've seen over the last couple of months has been amazing.
Right.
Like from a content perspective of creating text that works, or asking questions and getting an actual answer and having a conversation with an AI. We're seeing an explosion of sort of use cases, and people are throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. And then, then there's the bad news of like, oh, this is going to do all evil things, like write malware and write better spam emails and do all this other stuff. That's what I think most people are excited about, but it's still software. It's not like something.
It's actually not.
What I would like to see is if someone put sort of a ChatGPT AI into a robot, for example.
Yeah.
And then maybe you could start merging those two, and the robot could then start having better conversations. Even if they put it in Alexa, the Alexa, what do I use it for? And maybe you use it for more things, but I use it to find out what time it is.
Right. Weather.
And I don't even use it for the weather.
Oh, see,
and maybe play a song, and then set a timer. Because usually we have kids that are cooking multiple things, and there's a timer on the microwave, and if that's being used, because we get into fights if you turn off the microwave timer. So now we have a second timer, and I think Alexa can do multiple timers, but that's it. Like, and they're trying to you can play Jeopardy and quizzes. I was like, no.
I use it for news. What's the headlines, right?
Okay.
So, I'm eating lunch, and I said, okay, I actually use Google, but okay.
That's fine.
Give me
That's
the
fine.
Same thing, right?
Yeah.
Alexa, I have one of each, so I'm not prejudiced. But I say, play headline news.
Yeah.
It sits there and keeps you entertained for 10 minutes, and I know what's going on in the world, and then I say, okay, stop and go. But
do you think that they're going to integrate sort of that open? Oh yeah.
So they already have.
Have they?
Well, it's not ChatGPT. Okay.
Yeah.
But what is the real breakthrough with ChatGPT? It's my opinion, right? It's the natural language processing that they're really up the game on.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's the problem that all of these guys have had for years and years and years. I remember talking to IBM almost 30 years ago now, saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to do this natural language processing, and you're not going to know it's anybody else, and we're going to be able to listen to what you say and convert it to text with 99.99% accuracy." Yeah.
Right.
Well, they never got there, right?
Right. Well, yeah. What was that program? Dragon Naturally Speaking.
Yes.
Yeah. I think when we got that, there's a guy here at work who has a really thick Boston accent. And it's like, I put the headphones on him, and we just tried to see if they could pick up any of the words correctly. And no, it wasn't working very well.
The ka. And Harvard Yard.
Yeah. All that stuff. Yeah.
But what's going on with an AI, there's two things going on in AI I think that are important. Number one is it's not just about the software. We're doing some fundamental architecture stuff, right? The algorithms, the modeling that are going to improve AI dramatically. But the other piece of it is there's a lot going on in hardware that people don't necessarily see. NVIDIA's been doing a lot of stuff with GPUs, but there are a lot of companies out there that are building AI-specific chips, accelerators for AI.
Yep.
NVIDIA's stuff is a little bit more generic, right? These are really a lot of startups, right? Really specific for particular models, and so it makes it really fast. Now,
what are they going to put those chips in?
Great question. So one of the things that is holding back AI generically, right, is that you need a lot of processing power.
Right.
And so most AI is done on cloud somewhere, or this big, you'd fill this room with racks, right?
Right.
Some of these chips are meant to bring AI down to my smartphone or watch, my car. And that's when it really gets interesting, because now you have AI capabilities that you can take with you. It's interesting for a few reasons. One, the latency is much less because you're not sending it off to the cloud somewhere. Secondly, the privacy is enhanced dramatically because you're keeping the data contained. That's one of the problems that we have. We haven't talked about security and privacy, but that's a huge issue going forward. Not just in AI, but generically, right? And the third piece of that is power. Some of these big AI systems take gigawatts, not even megawatts of power.
Right.
So it won't do everything that a big rack in AWS will do, right? But for specific capabilities, we talked earlier about knowing if I have cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
You can't really do that very well today locally because there's a lot of data that has to be processed. But if you have a chip that's smart enough to do that, and the chips are getting so small, and we're talking about tens of billions of transistors on these things now. You can do an awful lot in chips, and it's going to continue. So that's where a lot of the innovation is going to take place. It's going to be almost invisible.
And you're going to see it, sort of the AI chip, then become part of a phone. It's still going to
or a watch
or something that you wear.
Or maybe even embedded. Maybe it's like a pacemaker sticking under your skin somewhere. The interesting part is we don't know.
Yeah.
What a lot of this stuff is going to go.
So what about technology? So I put a call out for some people to try to be on the show, and I got a lot of quantum computing responses, and that just makes my head spin and my eyes roll a little bit, because again, I just don't think people understand what it is, or it just feels like whenever I hear quantum, I start thinking Schrodinger's box, and the whole is the cat alive or dead, or quantum leap, which is jumping back into the past.
Quantum of Solace. There's a whole bunch of these movies.
Is it something is that? Are we years away from maybe being okay? So that's just small little iterations.
Well,
there's no real tipping point yet for that?
We're probably at least 5, probably more like 10 years away from something that's, I was going to say useful. That's not fair, but scalable. Let's say, right? There's a lot of quantum stuff going on. IBM's doing stuff. Everyone's doing it. Microsoft's doing it. Google's doing it. AWS is playing around with quantum stuff. But you need literally probably 1 million, what they call qubits, to process anything meaningful. And they're probably in the hundreds. Maybe they've scaled up to 1,000 by now, but generically not. And so we're 5, 10, maybe even longer years away from really having scalable. Now, why it's important is there are certain things in quantum you can model that you can't do very well on a computer.
Yeah.
Including, by the way, break security and break encryptions, which is really a scary thing because there's stuff out there that is not, there's encryption. They call it quantum safe encryption, right? That these things aren't. So routers, your PC, all the stuff that, emails, all of that kind of stuff could get really badly hacked. There was, you wanted to talk a little bit about quantum, so I'll give you an example of the conversation I had with one of the vendors not long ago. So quantum is not really real today in any big aspect.
Yeah.
And so you can't really break encryption right now. But what if I recorded all of the encrypted messages that the U.S. government sends out? In 5 years or 10 years down the road, get a quantum computer that can decrypt all of that and give me the ability to read it.
Right. Wow.
What damage, or banks, right? All the money transfers, all encrypted today, right? So that's part of the issue with quantum. It's not just what it can do today, it's what it's going to be able to do in 5 or 10 years. Along with modeling for astrophysics, for chemistry, new drug advancements. There's a lot of stuff that it can do much better than regular computers. That doesn't mean regular computers that we know today are going away, because they are very good at a lot of things.
Yeah.
But quantum is one of these things where we have to keep an eye on it because it is going to be important longer term.
All right. Do you watch the robotics and automation space?
I do a bit, yeah.
And then I'm going to add drones and autonomous vehicles, because I consider those as robots. They're just on either in the air or on the ground, and they're a lot more mobile. I covered robotics for a few years before I came back here to Foundry, and to do this. Robotics was very exciting. There were movements, and now it feels like a lot of the robotics companies that are out there are really focusing on the supply chain problems in warehouses and e-commerce and things like that. So it's becoming less and less exciting than it used to be. We still don't have sort of a consumer robot that, other than the one that can clean your floors.
I robot.
I think people are waiting for a multi-purpose robot that can, fold the laundry, or
they're going to be waiting a long time.
Load the dishwasher. I know. I've covered a lot of the research, and they're not at that point. Everyone keeps thinking about robots that were going to either, kill us all, and I was like, you could just don't worry about it. They're only going to do that one thing, and then you can just push them over, and then
the coolest robots I've seen are from iRobot, where they do their little dance. I that's in the videos.
Well, Boston Dynamics.
Sorry, Boston Dynamics.
I think we're going to cover that at some other point in another show. But even the self-driving vehicles, it feels like we're all there. You've got a lot of companies that spent, there's a lot of investment going on in that space, and you're just not seeing the levels yet where everyone's like, oh, robot car, that's really cool. Maybe I'm more excited about some of these flying cars and these taxis, because I think we're going to have flying cars or flying vehicles, flying taxis. I think we're going to have those before we get to the actual road. And the main reason is because you still have people on the road.
Right. And they're going to be electric.
Yes.
Which is actually kind of cool. The problem is that the range is still pretty small, but
yeah, it's going to be like if you're in New York City and you need to get to Long Island to the Hamptons, if you're one of those wealthy people, all right.
No, the issue about robotics, and I think people miss this a lot, right? These companies that are doing their stuff in robotics, need to go where the money is. The money is not in selling you a housekeeper.
Right.
The money is in a chemical process that's costing, making this up, ExxonMobil, $10 million a minute if it goes down.
Right.
Right. Or being able to work in a nuclear power plant because I don't want to expose you to the
dirty. Yeah. They call it the dirty, dull, and dangerous jobs.
Right.
Yeah.
And they can make real money there. So that's really where most of the effort is going on today, and will continue to be until, you can figure out a way to make money in your house.
Right.
And that's going to take a long time.
Right.
Cars are a little different. Excuse me. Because cars, one of the reasons people are looking at autonomous vehicles for cars is from a safety perspective, right?
Right.
Hopefully, and there's a lot of technology that goes into this, but hopefully, if you put enough technology in the cars, they'll never crash into each other. You'll never have an accident.
Right.
But that includes.
But you have to get all the people off the road.
So that's when they're looking at, that's where things like 5G and 6G that's coming in a few years are going to be important, because you have to have high speed networks. But more importantly, they have to be low latency. You've got to get the data to me fast.
Right.
And you've got to be able to handle gazillions of different events going on at the same time and components. So it's coming. Autonomous cars, despite what Tesla tells you, is not going to be here tomorrow.
Right.
I think true autonomy that, I can take a nap while I'm driving down the Mass Pike here.
Yeah.
Is probably at least 5 years away, probably more like 10.
Okay.
And then the problem we have, of course, is if I have an autonomous car and you don't, what good does that do me? Because you're still apt to crash into me.
Right. I can still, yes. That and again, that's the problem. That's why you don't see a lot of testing in Massachusetts. It's why you see it in Texas and Arizona, where you've got long stretches of roads, and they're making inroads on trucking, long haul trucking.
Yes.
That's always interesting too, because you've got long stretches of road where there's not a lot of other people, and they've got dedicated lanes and
deliveries, right? So Amazon, is looking at this, and lots of people looking at it. But that's a little different model, right? Because first of all, those vehicles move fairly slowly.
Yep.
And it's not like they're on the road, doing 80 miles an hour.
And I'm not sure how fully autonomous they are. I think there are people that are driving them, or if they run into a problem, someone gets pinged, and they're like, "Okay, I'll fix that problem for you."
Yes.
All right. Any other technologies that you're excited about to get me back on that side of tech optimism, or should I jump to my last question?
Well, so there's one other thing that I think that people need to think about. And this is a longer term issue, right? But a lot of what's going on with ICs today are going to lead to, how shall I put this? Hybrid people, right? Embedded electronics.
Ooh.
We're going to be Borg. We're going to be Borg long term.
All right. Talk to me about this stuff.
But for good reasons, right?
Okay.
So think about, you've seen these exoskeletons for people who can't walk.
Yep. And prosthetics. Things,
Yes. That's amazing stuff. Think about that. You're making people walk that couldn't do it before. There's going to be more of that kind of stuff, where there's a heart pacemaker, or I don't know, you're a diabetic or whatever it is. There's going to be a lot of those kinds of interventions. And I think that's really exciting from a health perspective, because hopefully what we're doing, there's always a negative side to everything, right? But hopefully what we're doing is making people's lives better.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what we want technology to do.
All right. I remember a lot of the exoskeletons that started out would really help those people that couldn't walk, the ones that were paralyzed, and helping them gain some mobility. But then we started seeing some like industrial type vests that people could wear just to protect their backs. If they're, I think an auto factory worker does most of his work like this.
Right.
And, when he's under the cars above him and he's doing some sort of screwdriving, things like that, the back pain that's for 8 hours a day is pretty intense. So there were these vests. So it's moving slowly from the sort of the medical benefits, which I love, into more industrial to protect workers. Sports, I'm seeing some stuff where, you're sort of like giving not an advantage, but preventing injury, things like that. Right. So yeah. All right. You win that point. But what will I have a chip in my head doing other than health monitoring or things like that? Like, is there anything else? Like, am I going to be streaming movies just in my brain and thinking that I'm seeing something at some point?
People are thinking about that.
Yeah.
Not so much movies, but what if you're blind?
Yeah.
What if I could tap into your optic nerve?
Okay.
And with the right technology, let you be able to see again. Put a camera on your forehead or wherever, right? And you could walk down the street and see what's going on.
I think I'm getting as I get older, I'm getting some hearing loss too. That would be another thing that would be beneficial. It would just be something like to help me remember things too. I think that would be helpful.
We're going to become the Borg.
All right. But then I think, that raises so many questions about, monitoring and data
ethics,
and privacy and security and
absolutely.
ethics. We'll get to that point at some point. All right. My final question for you, Jack, is, and this is something that we were thinking about, is that for a long time, we haven't had sort of a tech visionary to sort of not guide us, but sort of like be that innovator, that inventor. Steve Jobs was an example. Bill Gates, even, from the early days of Microsoft. Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook. I mean, we're talking like Steve Jobs is up here and the other guys are a little bit lower. And I'm trying to think, like, we haven't really had that. I mean, some people would argue Elon Musk is that guy, but I think with the Twitter stuff, he's now become more polarizing. Does the tech world, do we need someone like that? Or have we moved on from that tech guy as a superstar mentality?
I don't think we need the superstars, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I mean, those guys did what they did when they did it in a new emerging marketplace where people weren't familiar with the tech. And they were evangelists. We always need evangelists. We always need tech evangelists, but we don't necessarily need them at the same level. First of all, there's a lot more diversity now, right? So it'd be really hard to have those. In Bill Gates' days, there was the IBM PC and there was DOS in the early days, and that was it. And it was a whole new platform, and people needed evangelizing. Now we've got so many different areas. Do we need an evangelist in drones? Do we need another one in quantum? Do we need another one in the next wireless technology? I don't think so. I think there are going to be some of those. But I think there's enough stuff going on and people understand a lot more about technology now, that I think that'll go on by itself. The second piece of that, though, is that I'm not sure it's necessarily good that we have those kinds of folks, because they tend to not shut down necessarily, but they suck all the air out of the room. Uh-huh. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on that people do some really good stuff on that doesn't get looked at because, Elon Musk just said something on Twitter that, he shouldn't have.
So are we idolizing them in hindsight, maybe? Like maybe we're giving them more reverence in the rearview mirror than maybe when they're doing their stuff? Or is there's a lot of worship that goes on while they're doing it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And look, they make a lot of money for a lot of people, which is a big part of that, right?
Yeah.
But, They wear pants like we do, right? They put on a shirt in the morning, hopefully, and shoes.
No, they have people that do that
Well,
for them.
okay. Well, hopefully don't dress them, but okay. Maybe pick out their clothes.
Okay. All right, Jack, that's all the time we've got for today. Thanks again for coming in studio and being with us here.
Thanks. It was great.
All right. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Add any comments below. Join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.